I am wary of over-focusing on an individual's personal character over their platform. You know,
Uh-huh.
I've said this before. I don't really care if, say, like Bernie Sanders or AOC go home and they're a secret Nazi, but they go out and they vote for the right things. Like, we're talking about
You don't care?
politicians as
Were you taken out of context then?
I was taken out of context. The whole thing was not
Do you
shown.
think that he's Muslim? Do you think that a Muslim can represent all races?
Yes, I actually have a couple of tattoos in Arabic.
I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future.
Hello and welcome to Demi Show. Today we'll be having a conversation about the DSA, the Democratic establishment, and the plight of the Black liberal. Now, this conversation is going to examine some of the tensions we've seen post-2024 in regard to the Democratic establishment as well as the insurgent left. After that, we'll examine some of the reported tensions between what is famously known as the base of the Democratic Party and the insurgent left, and see if some of those tensions are valid, or call me Alex Jones all you want, if some of those are being pushed as a way to protect the Democratic establishment from rightful critique.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
This is probably like the sixth version of this video that I've made, so hopefully you guys can get this video before the Michigan Senate primary race between Dr. Abdul El Sayed and Miss Zoe Deschanel lookalike herself, Haley Stevens. But if you don't, I do apologize. Let's continue.
And you better believe I'm going to be doing it with a little bit of joy, a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of stick it to them. Because that's the Michigan way.
The first thing I wanted to start off with was an examination of some of the craziest shit I've seen on TikTok, which is this argument that establishment, right, the usage of the term establishment, which is a term usually used when describing individuals like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, the Clintons in general, even in some cases Barack Obama, but is usually used to describe a specific type of liberal politician, may be code for the N-word. Yeah. There's this lady named Susan Lambert, and she recently came out with a Threads post that was so crazy that my spirit felt the need to make a video on this. This is how perturbed I felt by this statement. Lambert said, "It sure seems like many people on the far left throw the term establishment around when they'd rather be using the N-word instead. What are we doing as a society that a white liberal feels comfortable basically comparing the term establishment to the N-word? Because the term establishment does not in no way, shape, or form equate to Blackness. When you usually think of the establishment, you're not thinking of niggas." We're going to be citing this book in this video, which is a lead captured by Olufemi Otaiwo, and it talks about how the powerful took over identity politics and everything else. The book basically talks about how identity politics, like the language of those movements, have been captured by liberal elites, by conservative elites, by just elites in general, and has been weaponized and used as a way to protect powerful people. The reason why I wanted to specifically start with the establishment is code for N-word conversation is because I think it's a microcosm of a larger issue we're going to discuss in this video, which is basically how the Democratic Party uses language and the aesthetics of Black voters, but refuses to actually show up for Black voters and to advocate on behalf of Black voters when most necessary. Now, that doesn't mean that the Democratic Party hasn't been a useful tool for the Black community at large, whatever your definition of that is, but the current apparatus, the current Democratic apparatus as of now, is fundamentally broken. There has been a whole post-woke left movement within American politics that has been spearheaded by individuals within the Democratic Party, a la Miss Alyssa Slotkin, who infamously, post-2024, told the Democratic Party to stop being woke and weak. Before I start, I want to first go ahead and make it clear. I respect who Mr. Clyburn is. I respect his story. I respect all of the work he's done. I respect every aspect of that. And I also respect the fact that he is a well-documented civil rights activist. I lay this all out to say, James Clyburn has no damn reason to be in Congress. I want to go ahead and specifically talk about James Clyburn, as he may be the best avatar for what we now consider the Black liberal establishment. Clyburn represents the Democratic establishment within the Congressional Black Caucus, an organization which is famously known for using its power within American politics to push back against South Africa's apartheid at a time where Ronald Reagan, the United States government as an apparatus, as well as Margaret Thatcher, were purposefully overlooking the crimes of white South Afrikaners when it came to the apartheid movement and the jailing of Nelson Mandela. There was recently a clip that was floating around of Estelle Herding interviewing James Clyburn.
What lessons did you take from the Biden administration? Like political lessons. Like, was there any political lesson you think there is to take from an administration whose central goal was to stop Donald Trump's return? And here we are.
And he stopped it.
I mean, you stopped it and enabled, I think some would argue.
Well, when the white vote turned out 71% 2 years ago, and the black vote turned out 59%, you tell me whose fault that is.
I guess
only 59% of African Americans went to the polls 2 years ago.
One of the things that genuinely irritates me about this is that Black voters were the backbone of the Harris campaign. But instead of Clyburn taking time to address their issues and their rightful anger towards the Democratic Party, he instead chooses to lambast them for not being good workhorses. Like, why didn't Black women show up more, even though they were the most supportive of Harris? According to individuals like Clyburn, the issue could never be the Democratic establishment. It's always the voters. This is why I'm not supportive of vote blue no matter who. I think that is actually damaging for Black people. I think people, especially at this moment, should be more critical of the Democratic Party, especially since we are taking a lot of the brunt of the establishment's failures, right? The establishment putting Merrick Garland in charge led to Donald Trump getting back into power. Slow walking, holding Donald Trump accountable is what led to Donald Trump becoming president. Donald Trump being reelected is what led to 300 to 700,000 Black women losing their jobs. Donald Trump getting reelected is what led to the USA ID cuts that are primarily affecting Black and brown people in the global South. The failures of the establishment in 2016 is what led to the Supreme Court being packed. The establishment at every turn, when it comes to Black people, seem to only provide a neoliberal framework of Black liberation. And if you think about that, you should understand that that term right there is inherently contradictory. Clyburn also touches on this issue of Black liberals taking AIPAC money. And according to him, the reason why is because Black politicians usually don't have enough funding, many resources, much support, that much infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. And he also talks about the income disparity between, the white community as well as the Black community, and how that makes it hard for Black candidates to fundraise. All of those things are valid. But my issue is the response in regards to this isn't that we have to make it easier and fairer for candidates to run without that much corporate money being necessary. He instead comes to the conclusion that Black politicians should be able to get corporate dark money as a way to make up for that racial disparity. That's very parasitic. You have AI going into Black communities like Memphis, damaging their communities, basically doing environmental racism, and then being able to buy off their politicians, all because individuals like Clyburn refuse to do a wholesale analysis of the issue. Like, we're currently in the process of having conversations around Jay-Z, and I just want to point out that's relatively the same type of logic that you see with somebody like Clyburn. Within this interview, Clyburn also brings up the fact that he barely found out what ChatGPT is, even though he's been a congressional member for 17 terms, and AI is destroying all of our lives. But Clyburn just found out what ChatGPT was. And y'all wonder why young voters hate y'all. Clyburn would later go on to endorse the establishment candidate, Haley Stevens, against Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. So if you're unaware, there's currently a Senate race happening between Dr. Abdul El-Sayed as well as Haley Stevens in the state of Michigan. Now, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is the more progressive candidate. He's for Medicare for all. On the other hand, you have Ms. Haley Stevens, who has been a congressional representative and is considered the more moderate establishment candidate. And obviously, because we're all rational adults, a lot of people have been having very insightful conversations about their policies. Obviously, I'm fucking lying. This has been terrible. This has been terrible. The conversation and the topic of AIPAC has basically dominated this entire race. And it's because AIPAC acts as an obvious avatar for two main things that have plagued the Democratic Party. One, a free Palestine and the genocidal actions of the Israeli regime. And two, Citizens United. The Michigan Senate race has basically been a rehashing of 2016 and a rehashing of post-2024 within the Democratic Party, and also, weirdly enough, some of the dynamics that we're bound to see in 2028. The Michigan Senate race has basically acted as a proxy war for the already established tensions within the Democratic Party, whether it's Bernie versus the establishment or whether it's the insurgent left versus Black voters. And Haley Stevens, being a tool of the Democratic establishment, has received support from individuals like James Clyburn as well as AIPAC to the amount of $60 million. Yes, $60 million of ads have been dumped upon Dr. Abdul El-Sayed's head, with one of the main ads specifically focusing on a statement that Barack Obama gave in 2018. In 2018, right after Donald Trump's first 2 years in office, Barack Obama endorsed a plethora of young candidates that were running. One of those individuals happened to be Haley Stevens. This was primarily due to her work alongside the Obama administration when it came to Detroit's auto industry. Even though this statement was given in 2018, UDP, which is a proxy for AIPAC, ran multiple ads throughout the primary directed towards Black voters under the guise of Barack Obama endorsing Haley Stevens for the 2026 primary. Now, if you ask me, this is so fucking insidious because Barack Obama never officially endorsed anybody in the Michigan Senate primary race. But the way that UDP is running these ads makes it seem as though that Barack Obama recently endorsed Haley Stevens. This is probably the main reason why I'm making this video, because of these specific UDP mailers. And I understand that some people may argue that this is technically not insidious because Barack Obama did say these things at some point about Haley Stevens. But are we really arguing right now that it's okay to mislead voters in this manner? I want to go ahead and talk about the blatant anti-Arab and the Islamophobic hate that I've seen in this race, because even though the Democratic Party paints itself out to be a progressive party, it has really shown its ass. In the Michigan Senate primary race, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, who is a practicing Muslim and who is Egyptian American, has received a lot of insert scary Islamophobic messaging here. Yes, we have to have a conversation about the latent and the blatant Islamophobia that we're currently seeing happening in the Michigan Senate race. There's a Black journalist named Samuel Robinson that has been covering the Michigan race and specifically talking to Black voters. And a lot of his videos show a wide variety of political opinions within the Black community. Like on one of the videos that he posted, you have a older Black woman, and the way that she framed it made it seem as though that like being Arabic or being Muslim was somehow antithetical to caring for all people.
I am supporting Haley Stevens because she's that candidate. We need someone that can represent all of us.
Thank you. When you say, not just for one, what do you mean by that?
Well,
you feel the other candidate is...
The other candidate seems to be who doesn't work a room. You have to know how to work the room. Don't come out speaking only Arabic. Don't come out with your Arabic music on. Represent everyone.
This clip is very jarring because I don't think Dr. El-Sayed has ever spoken Arabic on the trail. And if he did, is that a problem? Like what exactly is problematic with him speaking Arabic on the trail? And explain that to me without being fucking Islamophobic. And obviously I don't want to generalize, but I do think that this lady right here represents a specific archetype of liberal that I have been witnessing over the last 2 years, which are individuals that have become so negatively polarized against the uncommitted movement that they have basically slowly drifted into right-wing conservative talking points. Now, I don't want to go ahead and do a whole rehashing of the 2024 election, but just for a quick rundown, there seems to be a rift post-2024 between the liberal establishment class and the pro-Palestinian left, arguing that the uncommitted movement led to young voters becoming apathetic and not supportive of Harris. Now, if you personally ask me, it provides a very easy scapegoating analysis of a very complex issue, and it doesn't really hold the establishment accountable. I recently read a conversation between Ested Hurden and Samuel Roberts about some of the tensions within Michigan, especially around the Black community and the Arab American community, and how that could be leading to some tensions within this primary race. Some of the same arguments and framing that we're using towards individuals like Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and other brown people is the same arguments that was directly used against the liberal GOAT himself, Barack Obama. In 2008, the main attacks against Barack Obama from the Clinton campaign, as well as the McCain campaign, as well as even the Romney campaign, and all throughout his presidency, and even to this day, centered around the fact that Barack Obama is Muslim, and that means that he technically is somehow lesser than.
We're scared of an Obama presidency, and I'll tell you why. I'm concerned about, someone that, cohorts with domestic terrorists such as Ayers.
I have to tell you, he is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as President of the United States. Now,
And this is what makes the entire campaign around the UDP and the Millers very problematic, because an organization that directly participated in trying to demean Barack Obama's presidency and trying to stop the Iran nuclear deal gets to hide behind a shell company, a corporate PAC, to push propaganda out there using Barack Obama's face and his likeness to sell a lie as a way to prop up his white counterpart. And I do want to go ahead and say this to people who may have politics similar to me. This is why y'all shouldn't be showing your ass either when it comes to Black voters being upset about how Black candidates are treated, even if you agree with Tallarico. Because if you ask me, electability conversation has always had racist undertones, and it has managed to be weaponized against Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, even though he's obviously the better candidate, and has led to the Democratic establishment fully supporting Haley Stevens because, according to them, Haley Stevens is a nondescript actor. She has no personality, and she's not really that brown or Black. One of the things that I've noticed with the whole conversation around Abdul El-Sayed as well as James Clyburn and Haley Stevens is this organized campaign to basically put up this false binary that positions you either as being supportive of Black issues or being supportive of class issues or of a free Palestine. Call me a conspiracy theorist all you want. But that is being done deliberately because it is very, very disgusting to watch the actions of UDP and AIPAC and watch how they are co-opting the image and the importance of Obama's legacy and trying to use that to get Black people to be supportive of Haley Stevens, even though AIPAC could give a fuck less about the plight of Black people. And it's very scary to me because that means that a lot of Black candidates who are going to be running are going to be out of touch with their own base. Because when did these two things become antithetical to each other? When? Even though there's been this narrative within the Democratic Party that Black voters are inherently moderate, when you actually look at polling, it seems as though that Black voters are the most supportive of the DSA platform. And as a noticer, I am just picking up that directly clashes up against a narrative that the Democratic establishment has pushed. This, alongside Black voters being the supportive of the pro-Palestinian fight in America, directly pushes back against this notion that the Democratic establishment has been trying to push. Based off of my own personal understanding and based off of the Black women that I've talked to in my life, a lot of the animosity and a lot of the tension in regards to the pro-Palestinian movement has less to do with the actual cause. Because as polling has shown, Black voters are the most supportive of the pro-Palestinian cause and more so about a difference in tactics. Now, again, this is not going to be a 3-hour breakdown of this specific issue, but I do ask people to extend some grace to both communities and to do as much research and as much reading on this issue instead of just getting on social media and spewing a bunch of anti-Blackness or a bunch of Islamophobic bullshit. I want to go ahead and say something. First of all, my outfit looks impeccable. But second of all, as of editing this video, according to the Michigan 2026 poll done on behalf of the Emerson College, it seems as though that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, based off of their poll and their tracking data, is currently sitting at 54% in comparison to Haley Stevens, who is currently at 39%, with 6% of voters still remaining undecided. As I mentioned, I don't endorse candidates, and I also don't live in Michigan, so it doesn't really matter what my endorsement on this race is. But I have had a feeling that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed was going to win based off of his ground game, based off of his messaging, based off of, all of the energy and enthusiasm around him. One of the main through lines throughout this entire Michigan Senate race has been this idea of electability. And based off of the Democratic primary voters themselves, it seems as though that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is the most electable in their eyes. While Haley Stevens may be a good representative and a strong worker, as all of the establishment folks have mentioned, but she does not seem to be built for this specific political climate. So in the end, what do we learn from this? Well, that the Democratic establishment basically showed their ass for nothing. Now, as of recording this video, the actual primary election has not happened as of yet. So we could get a surprise on Tuesday and Haley Stevens ends up winning. In my opinion, we're probably going to get a really close race, closer than what the polls are currently showing. But I don't think that Haley Stevens is going to win. And based off of the polling that we've seen in regards to this specific race, it does seem that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is struggling with Black voters. Haley Stevens is currently sitting at plus 33 with Black voters. Plus 33. She's putting up Assad numbers with Black voters. Now, this is primarily due to older Black voters, while Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, based off of what we're currently seeing in general trends, is doing better with younger voters in general, including younger Black voters. I guess Black voters are similar to all voters. Who would have thought? There's no way that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is able to win his general election against Mike Rogers without the support of Black voters, specifically older Black voters, who may have initially been apprehensive and may have initially been put off by the reported anti-Blackness within the DSA. Now, I know there's going to be some individuals who are apprehensive to this. I personally could care less. It is very important that Saeed is able to energize the Black voter base in hopes of winning his general election against Mike Rogers. Now, even though the Democratic establishment is filled with a bunch of cornballs, there are genuine critiques for the DSA, especially when it comes to issues around race. As progressive and as forward-thinking as the DSA platform is, there is definitely a race issue when it comes to the American left. And this has led to a lot of Black people being apprehensive, even if they find themselves supportive of the DSA's platform. This is due to a lot of the unspoken little r racism that a lot of us have to deal with on the left. Like, if you've ever been in leftist spaces, or if you've ever been in quote-unquote liberal spaces, you may notice that you don't experience an overt type of racism, but there is still a sense of racism. This has a lot to do with some on the American left being class reductionists, who only focus on class issues and refuse to examine how those issues intersect with other aspects of our identity. And for individuals within the Black community, where Blackness and Black radical thought has played an extremely important role, this idea of just reducing all of our issues down to class reduction policies doesn't work for some individuals. On one hand, you have the Black liberal establishment that's basically feeding us into the establishment wood chipper. And then on the other hand, you have white leftists who are choosing to have a class-only approach that does not account for, I don't know, the obvious racism that we exist underneath. Like, the DSA definitely does have a race issue. It has a perception issue when you're seeing clips floating on the internet of like white leftists saying you're next to Hakeem Jeffries, with context collapse. To some people that are consuming that, that looks like a very white room pointing their finger at a Black person.
I guess I'm asking, did that make you think back to your previous advocacy and say, I shouldn't have advocated for this man?
I think it made me... I don't know if it made me think I shouldn't have advocated for this man in particular. I think, I made an assessment based on the information that was available. And I think that there are a lot of, I am wary of over-focusing on an individual's personal character over their platform. I've said this before. I don't really care if, say, like, Bernie Sanders or AOC go home and they're a secret Nazi, but they go out and they vote for the right things. Like, we're talking about
you don't
politicians care? As I mean,
I don't know about that. I'm like, I think these are the lines that people are talking about. Some people care about that exact thing.
But why would it matter if they're public officials and they're doing the right thing in public? That's an extreme example to essentially say that these are politicians who are people that they're levers of power and they're tools. I'm not here to say that they're like, the greatest person on the planet. This is about a representation of the values of a party platform.
That's why seeing Emma Vigeland get up there and talk about it doesn't matter if AOC or Bernie Sanders are secret Nazis as long as they vote the right way. What do you mean? Like, and I understand what Emma was trying to do, the argument that she's trying to make, which is like, right, like it doesn't matter if you like the politician as long as the politician is being an effective tool in regards to the policies you like and in regards to fighting back against fascism, which I think everybody understands. Based off of what I watched on the Majority Report, Emma's a rich white woman that lives in New York. If there was a bunch of secret Nazis in the American left, they would not impact her. And it's very naive to believe that somebody's moral failings, especially in regards to race, especially in regards to creed and character, is not going to play a role in how they vote. But again, it's the luxury of being a white leftist. And the thing about this is like the DSA has ran like diverse candidates, right? Like they've ran Mila Kiro. Summerlee, I believe, is affiliated with the DSA. Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman. Like there are black leftists that have ran, but those individuals have usually come up against the liberal establishment. And one of the things that I've noticed with the left is willing to indulge the delusions of Trump supporters and able to concoct documents, white papers, research, political theories, concepts, all of these things when it comes to bringing the white Trump supporter over. But when it comes to like the black community, all of a sudden, they're just a monolithic group of people. And as much critique as I have for the white left, I don't think anti-blackness is an issue that is only specific to the white left. I think the white left, because they like to push colorblind and class-only politics, they become very susceptible to this. But I also definitely think that there is little R racism when it comes to the Democratic establishment. Because if there wasn't little R racism, then explain to me why they haven't pushed back in regards to the Calais decision. Explain to me why the James Carvilles of the Democratic establishment were talking down to Jasmine Crockett and the idea of electability. Like the white left is insufferable. We can all agree. But primarily focusing on their faults without holding the liberal establishment accountable, in my opinion, does an injustice to the plight of black voters. Even though I don't live in Michigan, the reason why this race matters to not only me, but matters to most of us, this race is going to determine what the Democratic apparatus and the Democratic establishment takes into 2028. And if they learn from this race that you can basically flood the zone with $60 million worth of super PAC ads, and they learn that you can have a candidate that does not have that strong of a foundation because they are primarily being propped up by APAC money, if they learn that that is viable, they are going to try to run that candidate in 2028. You have people who are basically practicing delusion as a political theory. When in reality, you should have these candidates going out there, knocking on doors, speaking to every voter, and trying to get them on side. If you are over the age of 75, I want you out of Congress. I don't care if you're Bernie Sanders or you're James Clyburn. Get out of office. Not because I don't think you've done great work, not because I don't think you have a great legacy behind you, but because I really need you to understand that the safety of upwards of 400 million people, if not billions of people, depends on the Democratic Party getting their shit together. And I do not have time to soothe the egos of politicians and political elites. I don't. If you are not being useful at your job, you need to get the fuck out. It doesn't matter how long you've been in politics. You are not owed a seat. And it just drives me up a wall because a lot of the critiques and a lot of the pushback that is coming from the establishment seems to focus on this idea that they are owed access to things, when in reality, you're not owed access to shit. You're not. Like, I don't have any political allegiance to any of these politicians. I've also spoken to older folks that understand that they need a new generation of people in office because a newer generation of leaders is what's going to lead to systemic change. The disconnect is between the Democratic establishment and people as a whole. But the establishment is co-opting very important language about diversity, equity, and inclusion as a way to cover up their own ass. When, if you ask me, we should be examining anti-blackness with both the Democratic establishment and with the white left. And then from there, doing the necessary calculations to decide which side would be more beneficial to the plight of not only Black people, but of all people.